Welcome everyone to this conversation about quilt making. I am joined by Laura, Eva, and Rachel, and we're going to be sharing today about their creative
I'm not
practices,
hearing
their
anything.
quilts and
Shoot.
other materials that they use. And sorry, I was just busy muting. So we are going to hear about their practices, their quilts that they've been making this year, as well as the quilts that they were making before they came to the quilt making class that they're in with me. They have been in the very first session ever of my quilt making class, aesthetics, creativity, efficiency, quilt making. And right now enrollment is open for the 2025 class. So if you have any questions about that, you are welcome to pop them into the chat. In our last gathering, we had quite a few questions that I wrote down in advance. And this time I do not have any pre-written questions. So please be thinking about what you would like to ask at the end. You're welcome to ask about their quilts, about their experiences, and about the class. So any of those topics are very welcome. And we've been meeting together monthly in live small groups, and then additionally in some large groups. And then the students also have had some modules, and we are meeting now in November. So we just have one small group left and 1.5 modules left. So we're really coming to the close of the experience, and it's exciting to get to see the work that everyone here has been doing. So with that, I will turn the stage over to Laura.
Okay, great. Thanks, Heidi. I'm obviously very nervous, so everyone, you will need to bear with me, and hopefully I won't speak too quickly. And I'm just going to go through my first slides pretty quickly, but this presentation will be about my quilting background and where I'm going next, where I am now, where I've been, where I am now, and where I'm going next. My name is Laura Brown. My Instagram handle is Mindermaker. I grew up in Tennessee, and so this is my very first quilt. My quilting journey definitely started with my kids, and I don't have any quilters in my family. I'm self-taught. I just kind of knew as soon as I started taking those first baby outfits out of the dresser that didn't fit anymore, that I couldn't get rid of them, and I needed to be a quilter someday. And it took a while, but eventually I did start processing those baby clothes into quilts. I am a stay-at-home mom to 3 kids, and I have homeschooled them their entire lives. So my oldest is 19, I have a 16-year-old, and I have a 12-year-old. So I feel like this time in my life is really kind of like, I mean, life is always shifting, but I'm definitely feeling the shift from being very much involved in their life to finally having more and more time of my own. So yeah, for me, like the clothes my kids wore were definitely how I got into quilting. I just love those fabrics. I love that I can still look at them and I can still remember the moments when they wore them. I remember who we were then because we're not the exact same people anymore. And I just love that connection. This is a quilt that I made for my son. It's with his old bed sheets, and I just love that the more you use reclaimed fabrics, the more you realize that they are superior to the fabrics that you buy. Like, I love the way with those bed sheets, I can see the worn elements. I can see where like his body wore it away. I can see, the stories. And I meant to get a close-up shot of where they got finger paint on those sheets, but I'm not sure that's the one. At any rate, I left that kind of stuff in because I want to see it and I want to remember it. I also love working with denim. I've done pieces like the one on the left out of our old clothes from my son's room. That's my son's room on the right. And I definitely very much, I love being a homemaker. I am a homemaker, and I definitely view quilting as like a component of my homemaking. That's a home I lived in last year, but we moved to this year. But the realtor got some great shots, so I wanted to use them. That's also another quilt that I made in the past before the class that I really loved. Yeah, I just love to come up with like a formula and see where it takes me. And I love using the reclaimed fabrics. more things I did before the class. And I have always loved doing memory quilts. I've been honored to make, this is one of 3 that I made for a friend who passed away. I made one for each of her kids out of her clothing. It's really, really meaningful work. It's I think anyone who's done it knows it's very like heavy emotionally. So you have to take care of your heart, but it's worth doing. And I'm glad that I've had those opportunities. So how I arrived at this class, I was definitely aware of Heidi's work and a huge fan, and seeing that she was offering classes at different points. And I definitely wanted to take the diary quilt class at some point, but I'm a big time procrastinator, wait for something to push me that way. And sadly, the thing that pushed me that way was my mother passing away in October of 2023. My mom died really quickly. There were 6 weeks between her cancer diagnosis and her death. And so I wanted to take the diary quilting class to kind of help me process that. And that's also how I ended up in this year-long class, because I knew that for me, 2024 was going to be my year to process my grief. And I know that I need to have an artistic practice to like function well as a person. And I didn't know if I could count on myself to maintain it. And I know that I suffer if I don't. So this is a class quilt from Diary Quilt. It's actually not completely finished, but that's a kind of gist of what it is. It's called Do You Have a Moment to Chat? The quilt is about the conversations I had with my mother in that 6-week period of time between her diagnosis and her death. I kept track every single day of how long I spoke to her. And I kept notes on all the conversations. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, but Heidi was the perfect guide. She told me what I needed to hear to just get moving on it, to make something soft, to get my hands working. And I loved how working on this quilt like really translated perfectly into processing what had happened. So I wanted the lines to be straight, and the top ones were, but then there was that little one where it went off kilter. And I was frustrated with it first, and then I realized like that was analogous to what happened in my life. Like I thought those conversations would be very structured. I came in with notes, things I wanted to talk to her about. And then that 1-minute phone call that's represented by that little piece of fabric I couldn't get on straight was a 1-minute phone call where she hung up on me because she did have brain cancer. And she didn't understand how to use her phone. And at any rate, I just had to adapt. So and I just loved kind of like taking in the moments that were part of my life then, like the little pothos that grew behind me that I used to always have in my FaceTime videos with my mom. And we'd always talk about that pothos because it was slowly growing across some pieces I had on the wall behind me. And just kind of like that realization that the pothos keeps growing and my mom's gone. So I have the pothos there in the quilt. And then there were other moments that were really beautiful for me as I've been working on it, where like this moment where these fabrics intersect, there was something I wanted to happen during that period of time. And it did happen. And I was really grateful for it. And I didn't completely realize, but as I was quilting it, I did so many quilting lines that just point straight at that moment. And seeing that, yeah, it was just a really beautiful moment for me. And this is the back of the quilt, which I love because for a lot of reasons, it is so beautiful, I think, and so joyful. And I think that is the other side of sadness. And I think like a lot of you, I had the very best mother in the entire world. And so the sadness and the joy go hand in hand. And the back couldn't exist without the front. And so, yeah, I love it. This is another quilt that I finished in class that I had started before. I was making a quilt for my oldest daughter for her 18th birthday, and I'd finished the quilt top, and so it does look very similar to the quilt I'd made for my son. before class, but I feel like during class, I was definitely inspired to kind of lean into like the emotional elements of the reason I didn't get it done for her 18th birthday was my mom passing away. And so like, I really wanted to like settle in the emotions and like say the things on the quilt that I wanted to say to her. So I tried to say some pretty things. And then I also, this one's harder to read because it's in white, but I wanted it to be there. I also wrote, while I was making this for you, my mother died. And it's there because the moment was there. And so that will always be part of this quilt in our lives at that time. And I also did a lot more densely, I quilted a lot more densely than I would have before. And I'm realizing for me, like that is part of what I want to be my quilt practice at this time. Oh my gosh, there's so much cat hair in that one on the right. Well, and the cats got to it. Okay, onward. I also did some work this year on a quilting bee, and I feel like I was able to do that. I did it with Sarah Acorn and Grace Rother, and we encouraged people to make banners from quilts or quilted banners, and I feel like that was a really beautiful project that I felt more empowered to do, having been in this class and put together presentations and spoken in this way, even though it makes me nervous beyond measure. This is a quilt that I did in class where I had done the traditional blocks I had done before class, most of them. And then in class, Heidi had showed us a technique to embroider an image, and I wanted to try that. So I wanted to embroider the image of my first home, my childhood home. And I think I'd had the idea to either do the roots or the leaves, and Heidi had the other one. I'm not sure. At any rate, the roots and the leaves got pulled out over the traditional blocks. And for me, like the traditional blocks are very like comforting and they remind me of home, even though I didn't grow up in a home with quilts, like I still have that feeling about it. And I just wanted to have like the idea that, home, you feel it, like it's rooted in you and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Um, so while I was working on this quilt too, I do want to mention that I had an issue where the way I was quilting began to hurt my hands a lot. And Heidi helped me a lot with that. One of the things I love about you, Heidi, is that like you don't just show people the way you do things. Like you were like, oh, this works for my friend. You should try this. And there were a few things that I tried and I was able to solve that. So for the small quilting, I feel like I kind of took a lazy approach. I took things that I'd kind of like been playing around with in my house. And also I took things that I had mended and I just kind of cut them off and framed them up. The one on the right is my absolute favorite. It was mended from a sweatshirt that I bought a year when I literally bought one. That was the one item of clothing I bought the entire year because money was tight. And so, it's been with me for ages and I don't want to let it go. The one on the left here is just a sock that I made for my son that got completely worn out. There's nothing left of it but that. And so I wanted to hold on to that. And the one on the right is some mending I did for my daughters. Actually, that pair of jeans was worn by both of my daughters. So it got like more and more elaborate as it went. And then it's like, I still want it. I still want it. I feel like this class has really helped me realize that I work best when I lean into the sentimental. And for me, that may mean like holding on to scraps of things that maybe I don't need to, but I don't know. I love where I can end up when I hold on to things that I love and look at them again and see if I can do something different. These are little scraps of fabric, and I pulled out threads and I wove in other things. And I'm still kind of playing with how I'm going to do those pieces, if I'm going to do more of them, but I've really enjoyed working on them. And this summer, I also got into making some of my own paper. So if I come back to that idea, next time I want to sew onto my own paper, which also has little pieces of fabric in it, because obviously. this is the quilt that I'm working on right now. So this, I guess, is where I am right now and going forward. So I'm going to call it Let Some Light In, because that's what we say sometimes when we open the curtains. And the background fabric for this, they were sheets, and then they were curtains, and they were a lot of other things. And I love that you can see the wear on it. And so I just want to remember that. And lately I've been working on something completely different. So I just haven't had as much time for quilting. I've been in the car a lot with my son as he's working on his driver's license, and I can knit in the car, even though I can't. So I decided to start making these ceramic vessels out of knitted forms, and it's a complete experiment. I don't know what I'm doing. The ones on the left are before I fired them, and the one on the right just came out of the kiln yesterday, so it actually worked. But I feel like Heidi definitely gave me permission, or I don't know. I feel like I would have seen these kind of things in the past and thought I couldn't do it. But now I feel like I can. I guess there are just a couple other things I had notes on that I wanted to say. I know that's the end of my slideshow, but I did want to say a couple more things if I'm, nope, I think I'm pretty much out of time.
Okay, if there's another thought that you wanted to share, you're very welcome to, though. It may
Okay,
come
I'll
to
go
you
over.
during the Q&A section as well.
Okay, I just want to say a couple more things because I feel like, yeah. So I would say one of my favorite things about this class is that there have definitely been like modules that we came to where, I'm sorry, I'm like an ordinary student or something. I would roll my eyes. I'm like, that doesn't apply to me. And I would watch it and get through it and I'd be like, okay, whatever. And then 3 months later, I'd be like, oh, what was she saying about that? Actually, I do need to know about that. And I would go back and rewatch the videos and like actually get some, like, I think efficiency was that one for me where I was just like, I don't care about being efficient. I'm not trying to go faster. That's not who I am as a person. And then like 3 months later, I was like, you know, I really need to finish this up. And she had some good tips and I need to go back and look and see what they were. So I want to say that. And I just, yeah, so I think if you're thinking about this class, like I would say like definitely do it. I would say that I still don't know what my goals are. I thought maybe I would know what my goals are at the end of the class, and I don't. I would say that I do know one of my goals is to make things that I'll remember and that maybe you'll remember after you see it. Maybe you'll be thinking of it later in the day, because that's how I feel about Heidi's work and I feel about my classmates' works too. And yeah, thank you.
Oh, Laura, thank you so much. I love that you shared with us about that time when we first connected in diary quilting. I just felt so connected to that story as well, because I had lost my dad back in 2018. And yeah, there's like when you lose a parent, you're like part of that club of people who've gone through that. And it was so special to get to work with you on those topics and to get to dig in and think about that. And getting to see the work that you've made connected to your children and your family, and like what you said today about money was tight and you only bought one article of clothing that year. I had some years like that when I was first starting to be a quilter, and I remember those items so much, and I thought so long and carefully before I made any purchases, and that just instantly took me back and transported me with that work of art that you made. So thank you for sharing that story and like jogging that really special memory. And then it's been so fun and interesting to see how the curriculum has unfolded, because I was very much trying to appeal to a variety of students. So maybe someone who only wants a private practice, and then maybe someone who is already on their pathway of trying to be known in the quilting world and engaged in that public conversation about quilts, and perhaps some people who went to art school and some who didn't. And that's just a big variety of experiences to try to connect with. So every time I come to a module, I try to think about like the different ends of that spectrum and how it can apply. And For me, I feel like I am always on the computer and I never get to sew, which is totally untrue, because then I go back and I look at my website updates and all of the quilts that I've made each year, and I think, like, you know, how is this lie existing in my universe, and how can I reckon with it? And so that was a very fun thing to bring to that module. But you know, there were certainly, you know, students who are retired or whoever, and they think that their fight is not with time, but it sometimes is, and it loops around, and we've returned to that efficiency module in a lot of the small groups on many occasions. And Rachel made some really fun work that I think she's going to share about that module also. And then I feel like we recently in the summer, we're grappling with writing about our work and photographing our work, which can feel sort of miserable, but then at the end of the tunnel of the photographing and the writing, it's so satisfying. And just was incredible to get to see the writing that everyone put together and the photos. And I love that question that you were asking at the end. And to me, I feel very much like you're committed to having a public practice with your Instagram account where you share quite often. And it's really exciting to see you engage in that and share a lot of the sentimental things that connect in your work. And the, you know, I also knit and crochet. And so I've been very, very excited about your ceramic work, because pottery was my very first love creatively. And I think that, you know, the class is big enough that if you shift from quilting to knitting, especially because it's something you could do when you're in the car, like I would hope that the efficiency model was very much about sew in an airplane and on a car and wherever you're able to get work done. And so that shift is so exciting to me. I'm really, really so thrilled about that new work. So over to Eeva.
Okay. So so first, just a little bit about me. I live in France. I am from Finland, and but I go back. Yeah, I live in France, but I go very often. I go like every 2-3 months. I go back to Finland for a while, and I spent 5 years in the US in my 20s, and that's where I learned to quilt. So so this class, so that's what I was in the same class with Laura and Rachel in October, and then Heidi was talking about this class, and she was saying that just think about it as a college course, and I just love to study, so I really was that's what I wanted to do, and so I wanted to, in my presentation, I want to just talk about a little bit what I learned during this year. So when we started in January, what I had for me was that I had these technical sewing skills that I have had since I was little, but that I have been always sewing, and for many years I have enjoyed hand sewing, and I had patience and curiosity and willingness to learn. But then I had a lot of weaknesses and a lot of insecurities, and like no insights on my aesthetics or conceptual ideas. As a matter of fact, the first months when there was like, what are my conceptual ideas? I did not have any idea at all, and I have never been to an art school or anything like that. So the composition and colors, it was kind of hazy as well. I had this fear of improvisational approach, and then almost no existent social media skills. And I still have kind of mixed feelings about it, but I think that's something that I will get used to and feel better about. Right now, I'm not really into it, but I think that will get better. And then I had these forgotten computer skills. And making these presentations, at first it was very, very difficult, but I'm so happy I got back to it and got to learn it, and it brings a lot to my life. And so this little chair the detail, that was the first attempt of for sewing without any I did not draw anything, or so it was just, I just did it. I just looked at the chair and I stitched it, and I'm really happy with it. That was made in June of 2023. I took the creative back class. And so this was the work this was the quilt I was working on, because this was the quilt I had started in the diary class in October, and it tells the story of the joy and how I felt good about having started back to taking cello lessons that I had stopped for 6 years. And this approach, Heidi's approach of, I just had this big piece of fabric, and then you start to put things on it, and it's very, very intimidating. And what I learned this year was that the ideas come, you just start somewhere, and the ideas come one by one. And like for this work, I started, that's something that Heidi told us, well, start in a corner, because that's less intimidating than starting in the middle or somewhere. So I started in the left-hand corner, and then I went to the right. There was the blue line there. It's my vertebrae. And then I realized, then after, when I wanted to put my cello, the shape of my cello, I did not have much fabric. So I had to add some other strips of fabric, and actually it works fine. And this kind of approach, it can be scary, but it's so interesting, because the ideas, they just come from somewhere, little by little. And then I love the back of this quilt. It's I like I started leaving the knots on the that they are the knots that are not inside the quilt, and I just love the quilting that goes all over the place. And then I was traveling a lot in last spring, and I wanted to bring something to make, and I realized that I learned that there is a real magic about having a travel quilt, because it kind of helps remember places. I rather remember places when I have stitched a piece of fabric. I know that I knew where I was, what I did, with whom I was. And so I had this very light weight fabric with me. It was for my yoga bolster. And so naturally I used the chakra colors to make it. And so making something leads to other things. And so I had used these pieces of fabric for my bolster cover, and I had lots of fabric left, so it made me think of what do I do with these other scraps. And it kind of like it kind of leads to on its own to something else. And this is a little lap quilt that I made for my mother, and then some frame studies I could make with all the other scraps, with all the other colors, so I could fill a whole wall. But I don't know if I will do it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Another thing that I learned this year was that not everything needs to be great or meaningful. That I can just enjoy making something, having some little ideas and trying out things. Uh, these I made last winter. We had one of our modules was about small studies, and I made these are just like winter studies with how I felt was the snow with different colors, and how snow can snow can be white, or it can be gray, or it can be all kind of colors. And so these are the first ones that I really put on the wall. And this is my place in Finland, and I don't get to see it very often. So I was really surprised the last time I went back and I saw them on the wall, and I said, "Wow, I really like them now." When I made them, I didn't feel anything really, but then when I see them after a couple of months of not seeing them, I was kind of impressed myself. And so this quilt that I made for my daughter was the one that taught me the most this year. And it's about problem solving. And I started with a very improvisational approach, just having some pieces together on a linen fabric, and it was supposed to be kind of like just an abstract thing. And then I got more intentional about it. There was more like a story. I wanted it to tell a story, but the two ideas, they kind of clashed. But I did not realize it at first. I just kept on going and going and going. And then it was finished on the picture on the left. It was finished. There was just a binding to be added. And then I gave it to my daughter. And it was supposed to be finished, but I felt it was not. And I took it back. And because I felt that it did not work out, that I was not proud of it. I did not feel it had its own life. So then I worked on it a little bit more, and figured out that it needed some strips on the sides, and then the red to add to it. And then when it was finished, that was done, I felt that it was finished, that I could let it go. And to me, that this is very important lesson that I learned this year, that I really have to listen to my inner voice or my body, and trust what I feel. And so what I really, really loved this year, that these challenges, all these, there was enough challenge each month, each module, there was a lot of challenge. But it was manageable, and I think that's because of the way that Heidi makes this class, and how we all kind of create the class together. That it's kind of up to you. You do as much as you can, and you always get something out of it. And then of course the community and the group where it was so wonderful to see everybody grow, and everybody growing in their own way, on their own what's our own path. I mean, it's magical. It really is. And right now I'm working on 2 quilts. Actually, I started another one today. I'm working on the one on the left. It tells about home. I guess this year it has been so important, especially with Palestine and everything. So the idea of home, that was very important. And the one on the right, that's my sleep quilt that I'm working on, and it will be all just pink and white and with um, wool batting, and something that I will just want to have close to me and warming me. And so to me, this class is all about a desire of colors and shapes and making and creating, and then the making itself, just the piece that it brings to be there with your fabric and your thread and yeah and uh, your cup of tea and everything that goes with it. And then storytelling, and the storytelling, it's like you tell story. Each quilt tells a story. It tells a story when you are making it, when you are thinking it, and then it's a different story when you finish it. And I'm sure that each quilt will have a life and continue kind of telling the stories that can change throughout the years. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Eeva.
No,
Oh, I really loved getting to see that whole arc again. Same as Laura. It's so nice to be taken back. And it really is, I think this might be the first conversation that we've had as a group where everyone began in my diary quilting class. And I was sad that I was not able to teach diary quilting this year. I was too busy with of course this class and with the artist residency. I'm hoping to reinvigorate and have diary quilting again in 2025, but it's just been a very special thing to see that commonality with the three of your work and working off of that. And yeah, again, Eeva, I love that, you know, figuring out something that you can work on while you're in motion and traveling was such a nice theme with your work and Laura's work. So over to Rachel.
Thank you, Heidi. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm Rachel. I'm coming from the UK, so we're a very international group today. I am a full-time homeschooling mum in the UK, and I found Heidi through the quilt making class as well. So I think I followed her for a couple of weeks or something before before the diary making course was advertised, and then it just really kind of spoke to me. So this quilt, the background here, this is the second quilt I've ever made in my life, the first kind of unconventional quilt, for lack of a better term. So I'm a very kind of new quilter. So 14 months ago, I wasn't quilting. So it's nice. It's been really nice to reflect on that journey. The diary quilt, you can see the full version here. It's called Labor of Love, and it's a reflection on the last kind of 7 years of nighttime parenting and that kind of invisible labor of caregiving that a lot of mothers do. And it's really interesting looking back on it today, and as I've written this presentation, because conceptually it fits in with a lot of the other things I've done over the year, but I do really feel like what I'm trying to say has been kind of honed, and I feel a lot more articulate speaking about it. So it feels very different, but also very much the same, which feels really kind of authentic for me. So that's been a real pleasure to kind of revisit. So it's made from the curtains offcuts of the curtains that hang in my bedroom, and you know, there's some old trousers on there and offcuts of fabric, and it's got my child's handprints on there, and it's just a really special piece. It means a lot to me. But those themes of undervalued, unseen labor is definitely something that's come through of, you know, kind of my experience of motherhood and how I've chosen to do that in a system that I think most mothers would agree is quite flawed. And also how I used color in this quilt has been really interesting for me, because I think it's quite a comfortable, sparkly, nice color scheme, but actually I'm talking about something that's difficult and nuanced and complicated, and I really like how the color kind of and the quiltiness of it gives it a sense of comfort, but actually there's a lot more to it when you kind of get closer to it and start thinking about it. And all Heidi's teaching really helped with introducing those kind of narrative elements to it that I think really enrich the quilt so much. So this is another one in the same series. This is Labor of Love 3, and this used Heidi's vignettes pattern, which, if you don't know, is a prompt-based pattern. So it felt like a really good thing. I think I started it in January, so right at the beginning of the quilt making class. And I used it to explore my journey of breastfeeding my 2 children. I breastfed them cumulatively for 7 years. So it was a huge part of my life, and something not like anything I was prepared for or have done previously. And again, there's lots of the same themes. So that kind of undervalued work, the unseen work that people wouldn't always even say was work. Trust me, it's work. And also, it's very individual. It's very narrative. You know, this is about my experience. I'm not trying to make any big statements about how anyone else experiences motherhood or feeding or anything. This is about kind of my experience. And there are some, you know, comfortable moments and soothing parts of it, but there are also some more challenging parts to the quilt. You know, one of my favorite blocks, this is an old quilt block that I bought off Etsy or something, and I had to repair the whole block because it was literally falling to pieces, and then I just embroidered over the top of that, you know, what if the most important work is invisible? Because I think that's a theme that goes through all my work, and I definitely felt with early motherhood was that it wasn't something that was valued or even really seen sometimes. So yeah, just using texture, imperfection, soothing colors to explore something really challenging and something that I'm also really proud of and that was really rewarding. It was such a nice journey for me. I think this is my favorite quilt. My husband said the other day it's his favorite quilt of mine that I've made because it just feels so personal. And the vignettes pattern was such a nice way to kind of explore something that was so complicated and multifaceted. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. That's been a really positive experience for me. And then this is the from the famous efficiency module. This was inspired by that module. This is a work in progress at the moment. It will be a quilt, but right now it's a pair of dungarees that I've taken apart. The working title is 25 Things I Did This Week That a Billionaire Wouldn't Care About. And that kind of, I mean, that says what it says. Hopefully you can see some of the smaller ones, but, you know, it says things like therapy and laundry, like, you know, things that are just part of, you know, our lives and our week, but actually, you know, not necessarily the things that we're recognizing. And somewhere in there it says rewashing the laundry because I did not dry it in time and it smelled. And, you know, there's all sorts of different things in there that are just the things that we're not seeing and that we're not talking about and that feel really important. And particularly like as a mother and a caregiver, I think I want those things to be more visible. And by stitching it, and you know, this is a lot of stitching. I mean, even someone that doesn't stitch can probably recognize this is a lot of stitching. It makes that work visible, that invisible work. So that's been really rewarding for me. I found that really helpful. And it looks really aesthetically pleasing, I think, but when you get closer in it, you see that it says speculum exam on it. That kind of, you know, there's conflicting feelings there. And then, you know, oh, she had to rewash her laundry, like she didn't even get the laundry out of the dryer in time. So yeah, so my hope is that it's saying something about, you know, that kind of undervalued work that we're not seeing as much, that's not as visible as I think it should be, but saying it in a gentle, quilty way. So that's kind of a small part of, you know, what I've made this year and my journey this year. But I think it's nice because I think you can see sort of an evolution, but also a theme. And I think that's something that I found really nice is I don't know where my quilt making practice will go in the future, but it's been really nice to just spend time exploring these conceptual interests and looking at them in different ways and trying different things. And I think there's been a real spirit of experimentation in the groups and in the course that, not every quilt you make is going to be the best quilt that you make. Not every, thing you try is going to work, and that's okay. That's still valid and still a good use of your time. And that's been such a supportive environment to be in, and to try different things that I don't think I would have tried otherwise. And it's allowed me to have kind of a conscious exploration of where I want my aesthetics and my conceptual interests to go. I haven't changed my views on anything. I felt my work was unseen 5 years ago, but I now feel like I have a way to articulate and express that and explore that. And that's been really valuable for me. And I know I think I've watched all of these, and we've all said that the community has been really valuable to us. And that's definitely true for me. It's been such a supportive community, and it's so nice to have people to ask technical questions or aesthetic questions, or just chat, because just send someone a picture because you're like, I saw this quilt and I thought you'd love it, or whatever it is, has been really lovely and really valuable for me. So I think that's probably one of the top things that I've found. And also the writing modules, and just speaking every month for 10 minutes. I did miss 1 month, but speaking every month for 10 minutes about your work, I think it's almost impossible to not get better about speaking about your work and not feel more confident and feel more slick. And also just exploring that a bit more. So that's been a real kind of help to me, because I think, now I'm at a point where I can go back and read an artist statement and think, does this ring true? Does this feel like where I'm at? Do I need to change it? Whereas writing that in the first place is a huge obstacle, but now I have a baseline and a foundation that even if everything changes, I will still have that to revisit and to work from. So that's been really helpful. So yeah, this is just a zoomed in picture of the straps of the dungarees that I was talking about. This is probably my favorite part of the piece. It just says, ask my kid what was a good bit of your day, and the answer is all the bits, which is just the perfect 3-year-old answer, really, I think. And yeah, I'm on Instagram. Please do find me. I'm happy to chat quilts or quilt making class if you want to pick someone's brains. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Oh, it's so exciting to see. And you've made a lot of quilts that didn't even make it into this PowerPoint also. I feel like I have to add that, especially the botanical quilt that you're working on is so beautiful. And just so many interesting things that you're articulating about labor and work and caring. And I love that you shared that natural growth that comes with speaking about your work. I'm hopeful that it's not too intimidating of an aspect of the class, because I think, especially in Zoom, you can't really have an organic conversation the way that you can in person. And so giving each person a particular time to talk and have the floor is very helpful for making sure that you talk to everyone. And it also reminds me so much of being in art school. We would pin our work to the wall, and then we'd all bring our little stools and we'd move clump of stools to different clump of stools, going around the room, and each person had to share what they'd been up to for the week and present their work and talk about it. And so it's just really replicating that feeling of being in a critique in school, where you share what you're doing and then you get feedback about what you're doing, and needing to be prepared for that moment in the spotlight, I think is, absolutely what Eeva was talking about in terms of that similar in rigorousness to a college class of having that opportunity to share. Well, we are joined, I'm noticing, by some fellow students in quilt making right now, as well as some folks who've signed up already for 2025. And if I'm not wrong, 1 or 2 of them might have some questions that they're really excited to ask. And then we also just have some familiar faces and some new faces. And so if anyone would like to pop a comment into the chat or ask a question, or if you'd like to use the raise hand to share something, you'd be very welcome to. And I think we could kick that off as well, just if if the three of you wanted to share anything else about each other's work, or because you're not all in the same small group, I don't believe. Yeah. Have you gotten to have one-on-one conversations with each other yet, or?
I've spoken to Laura and Eeva one-on-one, so yeah. Me
Yeah.
and Laura have a lot of our quilts, I think, look hugely different, but we have a lot of kind of things in common behind that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I haven't connected with Eeva.
Oh, okay. We'll have to think about it. Although there are, yeah, with 30 of us, you can't all have one-on-one conversations with each other by the end of the year because there are 12. But yeah, Rachel, it's been exciting to see that you're really putting some extra effort with Chloe into creating a community that will go beyond the 2024 year. And that's just been really exciting to see, because the relationships that are being forged in class, I think, are so special, and we're getting to know each other so well that it's really just making me so happy to see that you all are putting some independent effort into continuing to know each other and work together. If you wanted to share about that idea, you'd be welcome to.
Yeah, so Chloe's in my small group along with Eeva, and me and Chloe we really felt that we wanted things to continue past the year, but maybe in not such a kind of demanding way, because we want it to be sustainable. We equally didn't want it to kind of just be a chat. We wanted it to have some structure. So we've made kind of a very, outline, a broad strokes plan to keep the small group mostly together. I think everyone but one person in the small group has said they're interested in keeping going. So we'll continue to meet once a month in the same time slot, and have 2 or 3 people present every month. So everyone will get a chance to present, but we won't all be having to make things, make presentations every month, because it's been a great investment. I don't begrudge it. I think the format of Quiltmaking is great, but I think it's a lot to ask of people to continue that.
Oh yeah.
We've tried
like
to
a
find
quarterly catch up. That sounds lovely.
So we'll be meeting monthly, but we won't all be presenting every month. So it'll be a bit more kind of informal, hopefully. So I'm excited to see how it works. I think it'll be really special if we can continue that community, because it's built now. We have those connections and that understanding. So it feels like something to treasure and try and kind of hold on to a little bit.
Well, and I've been very excited that when we meet, typically most of us are sewing while we're meeting, which I have loved the extra sewing time that I feel like has been defended on my calendar by Quiltmaking and gathering with everyone. And so I think if you get the added bonus that you all get some guaranteed sewing time when you're meeting, that makes it sound very sustainable to me.
Yeah, that's how you like reel us in, isn't it? Is protected sewing time. That's what
All right. Well, I don't see any new questions in the chat, which is just fine. So everyone, thank you very much for presenting your work. I'm so excited to share it on YouTube. On YouTube, folks are welcome to add to the chat there. Hopefully they'll like and subscribe. And in the caption on YouTube, I will have linked to all of the Instagrams for our 3 artists who shared. They all have beautiful photos that they share on Instagram of their quilts, as well as the link to the Quiltmaking class for 25. And then within there is also an interest list in 26. If you're thinking like, oh, I want to, but I don't know if 25 is the right year, you can get on that interest list. So thank you everyone very much for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend, or Eeva and Rachel, a wonderful rest of your Sunday night. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.